Broadcasting from the Civic Cypher Studios, welcome to the QR Code, where we share perspective, seek understanding, and shape outcomes. The man you are about to hear from is a man with incredible taste in music. Trust me, I know. The former Phoenix Suns in-arena DJ, the one and only Q Ward.
The voice you just heard, I'll put this simple. He taught me everything I know. So when he used all those tricky, fancy words to describe me and big me up, know that every single thing he's describing, he taught me. He's the R in the QR code. He goes by the name Ramses Ja.
And we need you to stick around. A little later on in the show, we're going to hear from our sister, well, my new sister, Q's longtime sister, Piper Overstreet White of the Las Vegas Raiders. She's going to discuss the Raiders' role in bringing the inaugural Procter & Gamble Las Vegas HBCU Classic to the city's Allegiant Stadium. We're also going to hear Q Ward's clapback talking about live fire being used in a military demonstration and just how scary that ended up being. But this half of the show, we're going to be talking about a few things that I think are really important. We're going to start off talking about how to get over your dislike of liberals. We came across some online content that really inspired the thought that, we might be able to offer something to folks that really, they try to oppose us and they find themselves kind of caught in that cycle. So we're going to try to help them get out of that short loop. We're going to also talk about how Fox employees are saying that the network intentionally aided Donald Trump. There's no surprise there to those of us that know, but hearing it straight from the horse's mouth, I think is really important and eye-opening. And a little later on, we're going to be talking about how Donald Trump commuted the sentence of George for our Better Do Better segment. But as always, off with a feel-good feature. In today's feel-good feature, we are going to be discussing our feel-good feature comes from CBS News. We're discussing how a court in Cook County, in Illinois, has interfered with ICE arresting people at courthouses. And so I'll share a bit. Cook County's top judge has signed an order barring ICE from arresting people at courthouses. Cook County includes Chicago, which has seen a federal immigration crackdown in recent months. Detaining residents outside court has been a common tactic for federal agents who have been stationed outside county courthouses for weeks, making arrests and drawing crowds of protesters. The order, which was signed Tuesday night and took effect Wednesday, bars the civil arrest of any party, witness, or potential witness while going to court proceedings. It includes arrests made inside courthouses and in parking lots surrounding sidewalks and entryways. Quote, the fair administration of justice requires that courts remain open and accessible and that litigants and witnesses may appear without fear of civil arrest, unquote, the order states. The U.S. Department of Homeland Security defended the practice of making arrests at courthouses, calling it common sense. Quote, we aren't some medieval kingdom. There are no legal sanctuaries where you can hide and avoid the consequences for breaking the law, unquote, DHS said in a statement. The statement goes on to say, nothing in the Constitution prohibits arresting a lawbreaker where you find them, unquote. Again, the rest of the article you can find at CBS News.com. I just think it's important to mention something that Q has made very clear to me, is that these are people that are trying to do everything the right way. Typically, you come to the country and then you get your immigration status sorted if you are fleeing something that was problematic in your home country, right? And you go through these court proceedings to get everything done the right way. So to get arrested while in process of doing the right thing feels especially cruel. And I mean, I agree with the judge. I'm glad that this judge intervened with what ICE was doing, because it just completely is not fair. So it makes me feel good. All right, so let's talk about how to get over your dislike of liberals. First thing I want to do is disclose everything about this. Okay, first off, this comes from a website called Quora. Okay, not scholarly. It's typically not where we go to get our content for this show, but we are subscribed. Me in particular, I'm subscribed to some really far right, almost like Nazi, KKK sort of forums on this site and other sites. I don't like being in those places, but it helps to do this show if I know what the people that want me and my children dead think about us, right? Because I feel like you listening to us, you may not look like us. You might be able to interact with these sorts of people more freely. They might be your bosses or the police in your communities or your elected officials. And they might listen to you where they wouldn't listen to me at all. And so me knowing how they think and what they feel helps me to give you the talking points and the perspective that you might need to perhaps influence their walk through life. I do believe that people are redeemable, or at least I try to believe that. In any event, these websites will also send me stuff like this, and I thought this was worth mentioning. So I do want to mention that this article, I guess we'll call it, basically explains how to get over your dislike of liberals, right? And the author is a person named Reading Ashton. I'm only saying that because I want to give credit to the person who wrote this. These aren't my words. Q and I will reflect on this after the fact. I'll read it and I'll let Q go first because I'm sure Q has a lot of potent stuff to add here. All right. The response to the question, how to get over your dislike of liberals. This author writes, you want an honest, truthful answer you aren't going to like? I'm going to assume that you are a conservative Republican and were raised that way. The answer to your question is do research, real research, not Fox, not OAN, not Newsmax, not what your family has told you since birth. Real, factual, actual, truthful research. Why? Because here's what you're going to find out. Probably 85% of your dislike of liberals and what they stand for is based on lies. Period. Full stop. I've had this talk, or tried to, with hundreds of folks like you. One of the things they all had in common was a belief in things that were not true. That's all in caps. More importantly, many of the things they spewed at me were incredibly easy to prove untrue, but it didn't matter. That's how indoctrination works, and it's incredibly hard to overcome. So yes, start by questioning everything you think you know about liberals. Now don't get me wrong, they aren't perfect, no one is. But they aren't coming to take your guns. They don't want open borders. They don't want to kill babies for no reason. That's usually the top three, and as I said, can be proven. Even as things historically in the conservative camp, even the things historically in the conservative camp, folks cite are incorrect. Republicans for the last 40 years haven't remotely been financially responsible, for example. They've trashed the economy every time they've been in charge, and the Dems had to bail it out. Fact, easily proven fact. They by and large claim to be Christian, but behave in a very un-Christian-like manner. They claim to be the law and order party, but scream bloody murder and conspiracy and witch hunt anytime one of their folks is caught breaking the law. I could go on if you like, but here's a start if you are really interested in an answer. One of the things I also want to say too is that, before I give it to you, Q, another one of the talking points that really comes up a lot for in Republican circles that I've seen is that Republicans, a lot of Republicans, I'll say, believe that liberals wish to change the sex of children. And that is just not a widely held belief. That's an extreme belief, but it's not one that people just jump to, right? Typically in those handful of cases where a parent and a child both decide, hey, this is what we want to do, that's a family decision. It's not schools, it's not liberals at large. It typically doesn't concern people that it doesn't affect, but liberals have a tendency to say, hey, look, these people, these children, rather than them grow up and hate themselves and end up ending their own lives, there's got to be more solutions than just simply saying this is what the Bible says or this is what our limited version of science says, right? So that's another thing that I think that people can do a lot more research on, and if they realize, okay, sexuality and a lot of things lie on a spectrum, and this binary that makes a lot of people very comfortable just doesn't really translate into the real world. And so that's what I'll say for now. Q, I want to make sure that you have plenty of time to weigh in.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot on this, as you would expect, because you really just hit the nail on the head in a way that I don't even think you realize. It's not the liberal agenda to indoctrinate your children or you to do anything. It's just also not their position to dictate what you can and can't do, right? We will say, I will say we, because I'm a liberal person, me and my house will do this. You and your house are allowed to do whatever you and your house does. As long as it's not actively harming me and mine, I'm fine. And what the other side is trying to get people to collectively think is that, you know, as you said, the liberals are out to take your guns and to indoctrinate your children, to quite ironically oppress you, take away your freedoms and your right to decide, when that's what they are actively doing actually. Mm-hmm. So it's like trying to convince you with a a thinly veiled confession, right? The other side is trying to do to you what we're already doing. Don't let them. And they could almost say it like that, and it seems their base still wouldn't hear what they just heard. Yes, let's stop the liberals from doing what you're already doing. So it's a really lazy sleight of hand, actually, right? They're not even doing the magic trick well, but it is and has been effective. Liberal people, as this gentleman said, are not perfect, but that's kind of the point. None of us are. So you're not being held to the perfect standard either. Go ahead, Rams. I see you chomping at the bit.
For people that feel like they want to know the difference between liberals and conservatives, but their foundational belief in conservatism is based on their religion. They're Christian, okay? Christian conservatives. I want you to ask yourself, if you had to picture Jesus somewhere, would you picture Jesus at January 6th in the Capitol, or would you picture Jesus at No King's protest? Okay. Or, I mean, I know that you might say that's a false equivalency, January 6th, or the BLM protests. And I'm not specifically talking about the outpouring of, you know, violence, because I know that you've probably been fed a lot of images that show the most violent parts of the BLM protests, a lot of which were started by the police. I was there, I know that, but I know that that's a lot for you to digest. Talk about, or consider rather, the push, the thrust of the demonstration. Okay. Which one is easier for you to see your Jesus at? Okay. Q mentioned something about taking away rights. Okay. So the abortion thing, you have to decide what is a life and when does a life count? Is a life count when it's a cell? Because if that's the case, you got to stop scratching your, body because you're removing cells, that sort of thing, right? So you have to really have some foundational re-examination of your belief system, right? You can't smash bugs. Life is precious, so life is precious, right? And then I think the long and the short of it is that if you recognize that the people that really run that party, like the meat and potatoes, the fiscal conservatives, the people that are the business owners and the landowners, and I'm not saying there aren't any in the Democratic base, but a lot of the responsibilities that Republicans espouse for their party have to do with limited government, less taxes, that sort of thing, right? People keep more of their money. That's a rich person's philosophy. And for folks that are, again, their beliefs are consistent with the Bible. The Bible itself says it's more difficult for a rich man to enter into heaven than it is for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle, right? So a top to bottom re-examination of what you hold to be true relative to liberals, and I think that you can hate them a little less. I know you're not going to change your mind, but you recognize these are two people just kind of pursuing the version of the world that works better for more people. And that's something that I hope you get there. I hope you get there. Nobody wishes you any harm. Our hearts were broken when we saw, I forgot his name. Now I sound like a bad person, but he got assassinated the other day. Our hearts were broken when we saw that. We don't want to see anybody hurt. So people telling you that we're like, want this violence is nonsense. Nobody wants that. Who wants to live in that world? Oh. Anyway, let's move on. I know I've talked up a lot. Unless you have something to add here, Q.
I mean, it's just ironic that you point out how much our hearts were broken when we saw that, because his heart was never broken when it happened to someone else. Never. Like, aggressively never. That's just the cost of me having my guns, I think, was his position. The irony.
All right. Well, let's talk about this. Fox News employees say the network intentionally aided Trump. Okay, so folks that are, Republican conservatives, this is a part of what your indoctrination looks like. Okay, this is from Fox News employees. Okay, this is not Rams, this is not Q. Okay, this article, though, comes from The Guardian. You're welcome to check it out yourself. All right. Fox News employees expressed concerns about the network's editorial standards and the conduct of top hosts in an internal survey conducted in the summer and fall of 2020, with one going as far as to wonder if they had sold their soul to the devil, according to legal filings. The employees' statements were excerpted in a 771-page filing released last week, made public as part of a defamation lawsuit filed against the network by voting technology company Smartmatic. The comments come from an anonymous internal survey, the Fox News 2020 Great Place to Work Trust Index survey of 1,040 employees conducted between 24 August of 2020 and 8 September of 2020. Several employees expressed concerns that the network was intentionally aiding Donald Trump and the Republican Party. One anonymous employee said that Fox should, quote, change the misogynist, racist, right-wing content, unquote, adding, quote, Fox News is a propaganda machine for the Republican Party, not a news organization, and should be acknowledged as such. It is embarrassing to tell people that I work here, even as conservatives know Fox News and Fox Business Network are biased information sources, not news, unquote. While the employee called the work environment great, they said, quote, the content is hateful and made the world a more divided and angry place, unquote. Again, this is from these employees. This is not me, not Q. This is not people on the street. All right, here's another quote. Quote, I sometimes go home fighting back tears, an employee said. This employee goes on to say, this network made me question my morals. Have I sold my soul to the devil, unquote. An employee said the network should, quote, get out of Trump's pocket, unquote, and realize that its most prominent hosts, including Tucker Carlson and Sean Hannity, quote, are a total embarrassment peddling BS and conspiracy theories, unquote. There's another quote here. Many days I feel like I am part of the problem and FNC is contributing to the hatred in this country, unquote, the person said. Here's another quote. This company aligns itself with the current administration and has lost its integrity. I wish there was purpose for what we do other than pushing the brand ideology and political will of the president, another comment read. Almost done. Many of the comments dealt specifically with the network's conservative opinion hosts rather than its news division. Quote, I wish that management would crack down on conspiracy rhetoric spewed by such hosts, unquote, an employee said. This employee goes on to say, we need to stand up for our real journalists and have more focus on news gathering and reporting to change our credibility in the way we are perceived, unquote. An employee asked for, quote, a commitment from opinion hosts / producers to only tell viewers the truth and to bolster their arguments with hard proven facts given in full context rather than spin or reckless conjecture that causes harm to real people, unquote. Okay. So I'm going to leave it right there. Again, it's a Guardian article. You're welcome to check it out. Some of this stuff, we need a lot more time than what we have, and we appreciate you sticking with us. I know I've kind of violated our clock today. I'm so sorry to our programmers and to Chris Thompson. I'm sorry, bro. But one of the things that I know to be true is these conspiracy theories that they talk about. One of the big peddlers of this idea of the Great Replacement theory was Tucker Carlson. Now, it was that dog whistle sort of peddling, but it was there. I mean, people that know what he was saying know exactly what he was saying. The people that don't know what he was saying were susceptible to it. I believe at this time, I'm not sure if it's still true, but Fox News was the #1 news network in the country. This is before all the rest of the Newsmaxes and all the rest of those other right-wing news propaganda sites and networks. But once upon a time, Fox News was #1 because they aligned themselves 100% with the Republican Party and became the de facto propaganda wing of the Republican Party in the United States of America. Meaning that the rest of the networks, which have their own biases, to be fair, one of the things that Q and I work in is media. So we recognize even our own bias and have to let people know about that. We don't hide that from people. We know that we don't try to pretend that we don't have the reality we live in. Look at my afro. I live a black life, and so do my children. So I don't pretend like I don't know what what that's like. In any event, for Fox News, they had sort of the lion's share of viewers, and then the rest of the news networks had to divide up the rest, right? So imagine the country having two parties, one network super serves to the degree of conspiracy theories and, hyper, what is it when you freak someone out? I forget the term, but whatever it is they were doing. So you get all those people tuned in every day, feeding off of the fear that you're peddling. And then the rest of the country, the more liberal, progressive side of the country, has to split up the rest of these networks, right? On Fox News, you have Tucker Carlson peddling things like the Great Replacement theory, the Jews will not replace us theory, the Mexicans and, people on our southern border are invading us because it's a liberal conspiracy to have more voters in the country to topple I don't know. They're conspiracy theories, right? So for this whole time, folks that have been tuned into that, and still right now, because they still do it, they didn't learn their lesson, were subjected to that. And, these employees said that they made the country a lot less safe, and indeed that is facts. Q, I'm so sorry, man, but, anything you want to, and take your time here, man.
No, don't be sorry. It's just, I wish because of multiple lawsuits, Tucker Carlson, Dominion voting machines, and these cases where Fox pretty much argued, hey, it's just opinion and entertainment, not news, that they should have been forced to remove news from the name of the network then. You know what I mean? Like, if you guys are intentionally defaming, intentionally lying, intentionally spreading lies and conspiracy theories, then take the news out of the name. Because like you said, they super serve an entire movement, and there's no counter. Like, even what they would call left-wing media still had to give credence and airtime and amplification to the right's messaging. The liberal left-wing media played a big role in sane-washing the president. There's no counter to Fox News. Even the networks and organizations that they would accuse of being extreme left, they don't super serve the left. They actually, in some cases, cannibalize themselves. So, yeah, man, it's refreshing that there's a such thing as whistleblowers here. They're anonymous, and I'm guessing they have to be to protect themselves. But I don't think you or I are surprised by anything that you just read. You know what I mean? Like, I think this is what we suspected all along.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to Better Do Better. Donald Trump commutes George Santos's prison sentence. Icky. All right, this from the Associated Press. President Donald Trump said Friday he had commuted the sentence of former U.S. Representative George Santos, who was slated to serve more than 7 years in federal prison after pleading guilty to fraud and identity theft charges. Joseph Murray, one of Santos's lawyers, told the Associated Press late Friday that the former lawmaker was released from the federal correctional institution in Fairton, New Jersey around 11 p.m. and was greeted outside the facility by his family. The New York Republican was sentenced in April after admitting last year to deceiving donors and stealing the identities of 11 people, including his own family members, to make donations to his campaign. He reported to FCI Fairton on July 25th and was housed in a minimum security prison camp with fewer than 50 other inmates. Quote, George Santos was somewhat of a rogue, but there were many rogues throughout our country that aren't forced to serve 7 years in prison, unquote. Trump posted on his social media platform. He said he had, quote, just signed a commutation releasing George Santos from prison immediately. That's all in capital letters. He goes on to say, good luck, George. Have a great life. All right. Santos's account on X, which has been active throughout his roughly 84 days in prison, reposted a screenshot of Trump's Truth Social post Friday. During his time behind bars, Santos has been writing regular dispatches in a local newspaper on Long Island, in which he mainly complained about the prison conditions. In his latest letter, though, he pleaded to Trump directly, citing his fealty to the president's agenda and to the Republican Party. Quote, Sir, I appeal to your sense of justice and humanity, the same qualities that have inspired millions of Americans to believe in you. Unquote. He wrote in the South Shore Press on October 13th. He goes on to say, I humbly ask that you consider the unusual pain and hardship this environment, and allow me the opportunity to return to my family, my friends, and my community, unquote. So obviously, better do better is well-deserved here. George Santos lied to the American people. He's more than a rogue, and Donald Trump is trying to, I think Q used the term sane wash him. He is a liar. He's a fraud. He lied to the American people. I remember I'm not Jewish, I'm Jewish, right? Him stealing money, misappropriating funds, him misrepresenting his background, his education, his business dealings, all that sort of stuff. Simply to, I guess, gain power, I guess. I'm not sure what he was trying to do with this, but for Donald Trump to then say, you know what, 84 days, you've learned your lesson, you're out, whatever. And it's not even, at least the last I checked, I'm not even sure that he's going to be paying restitution to the families that he, took their money from. This feels like it feels inconsistent with what Republicans want. Like if I said that this was a DEI maneuver because he didn't earn it, he didn't do anything in the 84 days that suggests to me or anyone else that, I just don't understand Republicans. If they were the law and order party, then if they were the, you know what I'm trying to say, Q? It just blows my mind.
They want law and order for you, not for them. What are you talking about? Like, that's the whole show for them. You need to be held accountable. You need to be stripped of your rights. You need to serve your time if you commit the crime. We just had a bad day and deserve to have a good life.
Well, I think that one of the things that we're going to take from this is that this administration, I think we knew it a long time ago, but this administration really has no floor. There's no bottom here. This person committed a crime that everybody knows he committed. There's no two ways about it. He admitted that he committed the crimes, and he went to jail for 84 days. And as you mentioned, Donald Trump pardons him and is like, have a great life. And he was complaining about the conditions in the prison. And, I think, okay, how about all the black and brown and marginalized people that are locked up in prisons that don't have an advocate and a platform and a voice? Are they not human too? Are they not worth, the same consideration given to this? I wouldn't even call him a mediocre. I don't know if he's white. I don't know his background, but he's less than mediocre. He's a liar. He's a failure. So he better do better.